Hey, I'm Ed Bolian, and welcome back to my personal channel. And this evening, we are going to look at my newest car that is still very old. It's a 2009 Spyker C8 Laviolette. These are cars that I have loved since they were new. I actually remember going to the Spyker Atlanta grand opening, which was part of Motor Cars of Georgia, which a few years later I would work at. And I was actually starting there in 2009, so they'd already sold all of the new Spykers that they would. Spyker was headed towards another round of bankruptcy. They were selling off some remaining cars that they sort of still owned as a company. But this one had been sold much earlier to Missy Elliott, and I bought it from her. She's the original and only owner until me. She barely drove it at all. It had about 2,300 miles on it, but I think it is so cool. Founded in the 1800s, Spyker was an airplane manufacturer in the early 1900s. They built planes for World War II, and it is a Dutch supercar. It might look British or Italian or something normally cool, but it's cool because it's from Holland. Now, they outsourced a lot of the things about the car. It's got AP racing brakes. It's got an Audi naturally aspirated V8, very similar to the one in the B6 RS4. 4.2 liters, about 400 horsepower. It actually has timing chains. In the later cars, had timing belts early on. Neither of those are known to be the most reliable things in the world, but I think it is just awesome. You've got louvered fenders, you've got a functional roof scoop, you've got an inboard push rod suspension, you got center lock wheels right here. So many things to love on the outside, and then of course, you've got the exposed shift linkage that is unlike anything else. I love a gated shifter, but a perfect alternative is an exposed gear linkage. So let's take the thing for a drive. I'll tell you a little bit more about it and tell you why the Spyker is seriously special and why I cannot believe only 280 people bought them when they were new. Now, of course, it's a very tub design if it's not a carbon tub or something more special, but it's just such a special place to be. Now, a Spyker was the perfect Doug DeMuro car because it is endless amounts of quirks and features, and that starts with the startup sequence. So there is nowhere to put a key. There is nowhere to put a key on the outside. So what you have to do is take this key that still has an Audi logo on it, and you put it in the glove box, which is awkward if you've got a passenger here or an invitation to familiarity. Then you have an ignition switch right here that you turn on. You got all your aircraft gauges, and then you use your start button. And if it still has enough electricity, that happens. The doors are super cool. This one actually has an aftermarket sound system. From the factory, they didn't have radios, but Missy Elliott wasn't going to have that. This is black over ruby. It's got the quilted interior, the turned aluminum dash. How cool is that? Come on. Now, it's cool to have a car that was celebrity owned, and with Spykers, that's extra nice because that means that the original owner wasn't some kind of Ponzi schemer or fraud. I mean, when you see this car rolling down the road, you never think like a totally normal person is driving that, a person who understands feelings or makes rational decisions. It is like a total Bond villain car, even in the car rider line, dropping your kids off at school. The fact that the canopy is so open, I mean, it feels like a World War I fighter jet, and that's really what it's supposed to feel like. You've got all these aeronautical gauges and switches and buttons and things like that. It's just so special. Now, it's not super duper fast. It's 400 horsepower. It's very appropriate, and it kind of has that nostalgic feel like a car that might be 50 years old. So the fact that it's really not that old makes a lot of sense, and it makes it a whole lot more fun to just hop in and go play with. So I really enjoy the driving experience, not from an outright performance perspective, but just from, again, how special it makes a totally mundane drive like this feel on a beautiful night like tonight. You get a bit of a ram air effect, and you hear the roof scoop rushing. That's what people always say about the McLarens with their carbon fiber roof scoops and things like that. Now, the early cars, especially the ones not delivered into the US, did not have driver's airbags. So this one with the Gallardo steering wheel, you know, it looks a little bit not like you want a Spyker to look because you want that 4-spoke propeller steering wheel, but we can't have those originally. I'll probably buy one if I keep the car too terribly long, and I think I will. Immediately after I bought it, Sylvester Stallone tried to buy it, and honestly, he was offering enough money that I was probably going to let that happen. Then unfortunately, he announced that he was getting a divorce after 25 years with his wife, and there were rumors that he was hiding assets, and so his interest by way of his proxy or his representative that had already come to inspect the car was kind of over. What I heard yesterday is that the divorce is off, so I have no idea if that will reignite their interest. Tomorrow the car's going off to get caught up on some service items, have the rest of the fluids flushed and things. But honestly, after it's set for 5 years, new battery, new gas, new oil, the car started right up. And like I said, I put about 100 miles on it, and it's just so cool. You've got these floor hinged pedals, you've got a great noise. It sounds an awful lot better than a V8 R8 or some of the cars that had the same engine. They did a really, really good job taking all of those components and putting them into a car that you could just hop in and enjoy. It's got cool doors, it's got cool features, it's got everything that we almost now take for granted as a super cool bespoke custom option on a supercar or hypercar, but the thing was designed around 2003. So I was actually catching up on some of the movies that it was featured in. It was in a Jet Li movie, War. It was in Basic Instinct 2, and they jumped it into a river, one identically spec'd to this car, Sharon Stone, driving it in, we're gonna say, an inappropriate way, but, oh, how cool is that? The shifter is awesome, the sound is great. The way you see out of the car is unlike any other car. Everything about this car is unlike any other car. I don't care how many cars you've seen, how many cars you love, it's unlikely that you have seen a Spyker. They only built 280 cars. This car has every single element that you could ask for in the recipe for long-term value and appreciation. And the fact that you can just hop in and drive it wherever you want, really without having to worry about it overheating or about it freaking out or doing anything other than not having electricity when you try to start it, makes for a very, very special experience. They do get some chassis flex, so I've got this about 1.5 inch long crack right above the A-pillar. I'm gonna get that kind of, the resin put in, have it stabilized, but I can't imagine that it's even possible to get another one. But the car is generally in immaculate condition. Missy Elliott has amazing taste in cars. She's got a 599 GTO that she drives a lot. She's got an SVJ. I think she's had 3 or 4 Aventadors, several Rolls Royces. She's always had great cars. She had a bed made out of a Ferrari 355 that we went and saw on MTV Cribs. But this was totally on brand for her, and I honestly think it's kind of on brand for me. I'm pretty comfortable in the car. It's got a lot of headroom. The legroom's a little bit light, but it's still very much a tub design. But it's like everything you see, everything you feel, everything you touch in the car is so special, so distinctive, and it just feels the way that you want. When you turn the headlights on and off, it's this super robust switch. Everything is its own little gauge, its own little light, its own little everything. I need to get the tire pressure sensors replaced, but apart from that, it's great. It passed Georgia OBD emissions, which pretty much just means that the check engine light is off, but man, what a car! Now, in many ways, you drive this in kind of the same way that you drive a Mercy. They're not really track cars, but great to carve up a big sweeping mountain road or a highway. But it's not exactly like taking out a 675 LT or a Scud or something like that and carving up a twisty road or a tight track. That being said, for all the driving that you do on a daily basis, this makes it better. This makes it more enjoyable. This makes it more special. And because that's what 99% of the driving we all do is, that's really where I focus, kind of the cars that I target. And it's one of the reasons why I always wanted a Spyker. Now, I think these are $1 million cars eventually. Today, they're probably half that or a little bit more. But regardless, I don't think the value matters, because every time somebody sees you pass, they're like, what is that? A good friend of mine had an '09 Spyker for a long time, and that was what his license plate said, is what is that? Because that's what everybody says when you pull up to a gas station or when you go absolutely anywhere. But next time you see a Spyker, I hope you know a little bit more about it, and I hope it's mine, because I intend to drive it an awful lot. So you've got a full front clamshell design. You can see the center lock wheels. You can see the inboard pushrod suspension like a Carrera GT. A lot of people say this is like the poor man's Pagani, and I can see that. It's got a very Koenigsegg style key. You got buttons to pop either of the doors. You can open the trunk from here, things like that. But again, I just think they're super cool. They're super special. They're unlike anything else you're going to get for less than $1 million. So thank you as always for checking out another car with me. Have a great night.